Radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
Good evening. How you doing? Fade to Black. Today is Monday, April 7th, 2025. Let's do this, man. Yeah. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Another brand new week here on Fade to Black. And just want to let everyone know right now, we are up against tonight the college basketball championship. It is going on right now. It is live. So I'll give updates for those of you that care, okay, that are with us and not watching the game. Maybe you're watching the game at the same time as you're watching the show, but we just entered the second half at 28-31, but Houston has now gone up 34-28 over the Gators of Florida. Okay, so anyway, that's going on. I've got it up over here. And I did something this weekend. I broke from my norm. Okay, I don't do sports. I don't, except for auto racing once in a while. And I love my Formula One. But so this weekend, I just decided I'm going to watch the Final Four. And I'm kind of glad that I did, because it turned out to be two of the best games I've ever seen. And both of them extremely entertaining and really good. So then I rolled into tonight. Here's the championship game. I thought, man, you know what? I invested all that time into those two games. So I couldn't watch it tonight because of the show, but at least I've got it up here. Okay. And I'm not going to, every time somebody scores, I'm not going to mention anything, but if I get a break and there's an opportunity, I'll keep everybody updated on the score. Like right now, it's now 30-34, Houston over Florida. Okay. All right. So that being said, brand new week here on Fade to Black. Tonight, Ella LeBain is with us. We are going to be talking about those UFOs and end times. That's right. That is tonight's discussion. Tomorrow night, Richard Vogt is with us, and Osiris and DMT. Wow. It's going to be a heck of a conversation tomorrow night. Wednesday night, Mireya Meyer is with us, and we're going to be talking, Dr. Mireya Meyer is with us, and we're going to be talking about her search for Bigfoot, the scientific side. That is Wednesday night. Thursday night, Stephen Bassett is back with us, and we're going to be talking about something you probably don't know anything about, which is the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. What is it? What do they do? All that and much more. Of course, he's an activist, and we'll get the updates out of Washington, D.C. I do have 4 major events coming up, everyone. I do. 4 major events. Coming up in 3 short weeks, I will be heading to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo. This is May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 2025 in Delavan, Wisconsin at Delavan Lake at the resort. Links for everything are below. An amazing lineup. This is going to be a great event. And, you know, people say it all the time. You don't come to the Midwest. Nothing is ever going. Well, here's your opportunity. Okay. Chris Bledsoe, Scott Wolter, an amazing list of speakers. So that's going down in 3 short weeks in Delavan, Wisconsin. And then I'm back here for Contact in the Desert, May 29th through June 2nd, right here in Palm Springs, California. And then I head south back to Peru with Brian Forrester for the Inca Celebration of the Sun. It is the solstice, June 17th through the 27th. Then I come back to the States and head to the East Coast for the Psi Games, the Psychic Olympics. I am a game show host. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. And that is in Charlottesville, Virginia. And the links for everything that I'm doing this year are below. Get your tickets and I'll see you out there in 2025. Okay. All right. Where am I? Oh, I'm here. I'm here with Ella LeBain tonight. And we're going to be talking about UFOs and the end of times. Very intriguing subject. She's a researcher. She explores the connection between extraterrestrial disclosure, interdimensional beings, and end times prophecy. Wow. It's going to be one of those conversations. We're going to talk about biblical accounts and how they align with modern UFO phenomena and much more. Her links are below. And I would like to welcome for the first time to Fade to Black, Ella LeBain. Ella, good evening. How you doing?
Hi, thanks for having me, Jimmy.
This is it's going to be great. Now, here's the thing. You get the first time guest disclaimer. Yeah. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, here it
Lay
is.
it on me.
Ella, it's just you and I sitting on my couch having a conversation as friends. And where that conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends. But we're going to end as friends. There you go. But you have to accept so we can move on.
All
You're
good.
Okay,
Yep.
That's good. Vulcan Sign Language to start the show. You have a degree in astronomy, right? And does that conflict with the religious side of things for you?
No, not at all. I don't consider myself religious. I'm spiritual. I identify as a spiritual being, having a human experience.
Okay. Does that okay? All right. Well, let me frame it a little bit differently. Does your degree in astronomy and your knowledge of the universe conflict with biblical prophecy? That's
No,
better, isn't it?
not at all. I was educated in Israel. So in Israel, you learn everything all at once. I moved there when I was 15. So coming from the American education system into the Israeli education system was a bit of a culture shock for me at first. Because here, as you know, in America, especially in high school, junior high and high school, you learn one math a year, one science a year. In Israel, you do all three maths and all three sciences every year. So that sort of helps with an overall understanding, to help connect dots that algebra and geometry and, trigonometry, they're all somehow connected, even though it's kind of mind blowing to learn it all at once. But that's how they operate there. So when it comes to sciences, a lot of people don't know this, but Judaism is based in Kabbalah, which is cosmology, astronomy, astrology, and physics. In fact, the language itself is a language of physics. So everything is mathematical, and it all makes sense. It's logical. And here's another piece: the 22 Hebrew letters of the Hebrew alphabet are pictographs of the 22 major constellations of the Milky Way galaxy.
Is that right?
Yes.
You're just making stuff up.
No.
Is that true?
Yeah, I published this. This was in my first book, Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo, which came out in 2012. I went from astronomy into astrology because I found out that astrology was actually older than astronomy. So
that part's true. The part
Right.
about the alphabet, I'm not so sure. I'm not.
Oh,
is
yeah.
that wow?
Oh yeah. In fact, the I just published a book in September, my 6th book called Heaven's Witness, which is all about the Mazarot. So that's Hebrew for constellations. So every single star was named after a part of the story of the divine plan for salvation. So it was written in the stars before it actually came to Earth in a scroll by a scribe. And so, like, if you get into like our history, for instance, Enoch. Okay, everybody knows who Enoch was. Those books were rejected by the Church of Rome, but they were still relevant to Jews and Judaism. And I proved this in my 3rd book, Who Are the Angels. I actually published like a chart, and I compared the scriptures from Enoch to the actual words of Jesus Christ, the red letter Bible. I proved that he was quoting right out of the books of Enoch, and so were his disciples. So suffice to say that the books of Enoch were considered, the word of God. And Enoch talked a lot about the universe and cosmology and the stars, and also how we learned astrology through one of the 200 B'nai HaElohim, which we also call the fallen angels now, that came to Earth and taught humans all kinds of things. And one of them, Barakiel, was the one who taught humans astrology. So you have to think, well, astrology has been corrupted over the centuries, but you also have to think that it was a thing. It was real if they came and taught it to humans thousands of years ago. So it's all connected, and so Enoch was taken up to heaven he was shown the language. So this is where I get my information, some of my information from.
Man, I've got to take you out to dinner. I want to sit with you for like 4 hours over some delicious food and pick your brain.
You're on next time you're in Westminster.
Well, this is yeah. Beautiful downtown Westminster, Colorado. And it is beautiful in downtown Westminster, everybody. We were just talking about that before the show. I love that town. But okay, now let's back up because I want to address a few things that you just said.
Sure.
And then, but I'm going to start with this question. Last week, I hosted a conference in Sedona, by the way, beautiful Sedona. And right, it's so great there. And part of my presentation was what we're talking about right now. And what I had said is this, that our knowledge of the universe today is different than it was just 20 years ago. And it's changing daily now. I mean, some of the research that has come out in the last week and the last month, things are really changing in cosmology. I mean, like,
I agree.
We may have to rewrite we got to erase the whiteboard and start from scratch. It's like that dramatic right now. It's really crazy. That being said, we used to hear from the astrophysicists and the brain gang out there about the lack of planets outside of our solar system, and if there was life out there, and we just may be very unique in the universe here. But today, we now know that the opposite is true, that every star in the universe has at least one planet. We have 8, 9, 10 here in our star system. That's a lot of planets. And a lot. It's a number that humans can't wrap their mind around. So that idea is now flipped over. It's not about how much life is out there. Is it unique, or is it infinite? Is it a crazy amount of life? And speaking to this audience, I don't need to convince this audience at all, or myself, if we're being visited. Okay? The phenomenon is real. We're being visited.
I
It's
agree.
the professionals out there, those academics, that are starting to come around because of our knowledge of the universe. Would you say that that is the case?
Yes, but it's still, it's just really budding. It's not enough for it to like take hold where it's, like going to create like a collective consciousness just yet, because the ones who are coming around, they're still in the minority. So, but it's still hopeful, and it's nascent, it's budding, and there's hope.
Right.
Yeah, so I agree with that. But there's so much that's been covered up, okay, that we've already had, okay, that went dark for deliberate reasons, nefarious reasons, to somehow create a species with amnesia so that we wouldn't remember who we were in the past, what happened in the past, so that they could manipulate the timeline and also manipulate us. So that's part of the issue, whether it comes to, how many planets we have, how many suns we have. Okay, so most of the you went and to say about the planets around suns, but most of the stars in the universe are binary, if not trinary. That's a common thing. And we grew up believing that we only had one sun, and I found evidence otherwise. So not only here now in evidenced in our space telescopes, but evidenced, literally written in stone, that the ancients left us from the past. So
you're saying that our star system is a 3-body problem, or a 2-body problem?
It's binary.
Yeah, it's a 2-body problem. Yeah, fascinating. Yes. There's a lot of Walter Cruttenden has done so much research in this area, and there definitely seems to be gravitational anomalies that are pulling things in a weird way.
Absolutely.
Here that can only come from something massive being out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's happening, and that's the reason for climate change, pole shifting. There's the physical poles and the magnetic poles. The magnetic poles have flipped. The magnetic poles have shifted. I just got information today about how we're actually moving towards another like gradual shift of that. And this has to do with, like you said, the perturbations that are affecting not just the Earth, but the entire solar system. There is evidence that all of the planets in our solar system are experiencing some type of climate change. And that's because of an incoming system that is intersecting in our solar system. So our sun's binary twin, we call Nemesis. And the Greeks called it Hercules because it was this brown dwarf dead star. So unlike our sun that radiates and gives us light, this binary twin no longer radiates and gives light. However, just like our sun will illuminate, like Venus, for instance, and make it look like a big bright star, the same thing happens when Nemesis comes around to the side of the sun, and we can see it rise before the sun. Usually an hour before the sun is when most people are observing it. In fact, in Hawaii, the Wormwood Observatory at the top of the mountain there is focused on watching this, and they have video of it, and you can see it rise before our sun rises, and you see it looks like another sun because our sun is illuminating it. But it also has planets around it. So most of the planets orbit in a nice orderly fashion, in a round orbit, and they all go counterclockwise. One of the planets that belongs to it is Nibiru. So the Sumerians and Zechariah Sitchin, who translated and interpreted a lot of what the Sumerians left behind that was written in stone. That's where his book, The 12th Planet, came from, was that they counted from the outside in. So that was Nibiru, which we call which people have been calling Planet X. So there's a whole manipulation I can get into if you want to hear about it, about what our scientists have done recently to our solar system and the order of our planets when they demoted Pluto. So they've been trying to replace so that they can justify this other planet that they're now calling Planet 9. That's like huge, right? It's this big blue black. Some people, they've even thought that maybe it was a black hole and it wasn't a planet because it's just hanging out at the edge of our solar system, kind of like where the Oort cloud is. But the ancients, it's hard to kind of ignore what they left behind for us because they wrote it in stone, and there are stone tablets that show 2 stars. So we know that this is part of our cosmic history. But this one is Nibiru, suffice to say, goes clockwise where the other planets go counterclockwise. It's elongated, it's tilted, it doesn't play well with the others, it's different, So every time it comes through, it creates some type of havoc, some type of cataclysm. And the Nibiru is not going to hit the Earth. So I just want to put that out there. Don't want anyone to think that. But what it will do is create this atmospheric storm that will eventually complete our pole shift, because our pole shift has already begun. So when Nibiru passes, it's going to pull, the magnetic energy is going to lock on to our Earth's core. And recently, our Earth's core flipped.
Yeah, it did. Well, when the Chinese released their research on that, it was speeding up, it was slowing down, it was stopping. A lot of reports over those months with different numbers and different results. And that was fascinating, what was causing that. And you're right, though. The magnetic pole is going to be in Moscow in a couple of weeks. How interesting is that, right?
Yeah, that's wild. And I mean, it's from last I saw it shifted 45 degrees. It used to be the Canadian Arctic, and now it's Siberia, Russia. Yep. So yeah, moving it to Moscow is crazy.
Oh, I'm cracking a joke about that, but it's soon to be directly over Putin, apparently, in the Kremlin. Now, with all of this going on, our community can talk about this all day long. We love a good story. We love a good theory. We love something crazy we can latch onto that's got a foundation in science. And, I just love this community. And then you have some guy like the astrophysicist Mike Brown out of Caltech, who I think it was about 6 years ago. He did two papers that came out, but both based on the same thing, that the math says there is a ginormous planet out there somewhere around the Oort cloud, maybe beyond, maybe in front of it. Don't know, because it's not reflecting sunlight, so we don't have a way to detect it. What we do know is the planets are acting funky, and the only thing that can do that is something massive sitting out there, which some call Planet 9, some call Planet X. Could it be Nibiru? I don't know, but Mike Brown comes along, and then our community kind of loses their mind, because it's verification of what we just thought was fun to talk about. And then suddenly we're like, what? This shit is real? And then we have to deal with that, because it is crazy to think that we have a giant planet out there or something else, right, sitting out there that we can't detect, but it's messing with our planets directly in our star system. Mike Brown really messed it up for everybody, didn't he?
Indeed, it is. It is creating a lot of issues. But I don't think that that's the only thing that's out there. The Planet 9, and I published this in my book about Nibiru, which is book 5, The Heavens, about Mike Brown and his research. And, it was when they demoted Pluto so that they could do this. So this ties into the
wait. Why do you say that? Why do you say it was when they demoted Pluto? Because so Mike Brown could have something to talk about?
Well, I don't know. I can't answer that.
Yeah, you can.
Well, I think he's part of a grouping, okay, that's made up of a number of them. Okay, so let me just shift and connect a dot here to the end time prophecy. Okay.
Sure.
So the end time prophecy talks about, and this has happened multiple times on our timeline. So it's not just one person. It's more like an office, a group of people that represent what we would call like the Antichrist. So it says that the Antichrist will come and change the times and the seasons. Okay. Well, that already happened when the Church of Rome changed the calendars, because the Gregorian calendar that we are on right now has absolutely no astronomical relevance whatsoever. So they changed it from the Julian calendar, which was all about counting according to the stars, which did have astronomical relevance. Then there was the Jewish calendar, which they haven't really stopped counting. They didn't, when Christ came and ascended and, resurrected and ascended, that's when, where we have the BC and the AD. The Jews obviously did not change their calendar. But what I found out that they did do is they deleted 200 years. Okay. So this is complex. So allow me to unpack this, because this answers the question. Okay, so when I found that out, it blew my mind, because I was under the impression that they had the most astronomically accurate calendar, meaning that they counted solar and lunar, whereas like the Arab calendar just does lunar. And then, of course, the Gregorian calendar claims to be doing solar, but it doesn't, because they always have to add a day every 4 years. The math is fuzzy. And also the months are not equal. And things used to be, there's 13 lunar months in a solar year. And then we found out that we also have a 13th sign of the zodiac, which was always there. It was just ignored. And that's Ophiuchus, which is kind of sandwiched in between, Sagittarius and Capricorn, which is a major sign, because it's the sign that represents the Messiah. And it's the sign that represents the Messiah's dominion over the serpent. Okay, so this is like huge mythology and metaphor and you name it. So of course there's a pattern here, and that is that they keep like pushing things under the rug, trying to erase history, trying to delete stuff so that we don't have our pieces together. So the back to the prophecy in Daniel, it says that the Antichrist will change the times and the seasons. Well, we already know that the Church of Rome has done that at least once. Okay. And then when I looked at the Jewish calendar, I thought, well, why did they delete 200 years? Like, what happened there? The math was fuzzy. So it's just like accounting. It was like, well, we could just delete it just to make the books, work. And the reason was Nibiru. Nibiru changes time. So every time Nibiru comes around, time as we know it here on Earth, which is our way of counting, okay? It's not the same time that we count on Mars or that we count on Nibiru. I mean, even the Sumerians said that that Nibiru comes around once a shar, and a shar is like a full cycle around the suns for them, which they would call a year, which is, and Sitchin wrote it was 3,600, but he didn't specify that those were lunar years. So when you translate the 3,600 lunar years, it comes out to be 3,567 Earth years. Okay, so we have to ask, well, when was the last time it passed? Well, most of the researchers in the field that look at this stuff believe and agree that it was the Exodus, which is what we're getting ready to celebrate at the end of this week, Passover, which was the first Passover, the Exodus, in the Bible, when the Israelites came out of Egypt. So that was 1,290 years BC. Okay.
And that was Ramses II, right? He was the pharaoh in Egypt.
I think so. So,
well, I'm only asking because the pharaoh in the Bible was never named, but most researchers have kind of deduced it was Ramses II.
Moses and Ramses, yes, they went together. I don't know if it was the first or the second, but I'll go with Ramses for sure, because I think that was
father and son. Yeah,
yes,
close enough.
Close enough. That makes sense. So let's just say 1,290 years BC. So of course they changed the calendar. We're on 2025 now. Just kind of basic stuff, and of course you always have to give this margin of error. So 1,290 plus 2025 puts us to 3,315 years since the last passing, the last Passover, the first Passover, the original Passover of, like that we're celebrating. But it wasn't the first time it passed the earth, but that was the last time. And the 10 plagues were indicative of the symptoms of the earth changes, of the type of stuff that happens to the earth when Nibiru passes. So, okay, so we're at 3,315. And so if you take that away from 3,567.
I'm on my calculator right now.
Cool. You got 252, right?
Okay, it was 3,500 and
67 is what the 3,600 lunar
minus 1260.
No, 3,567 minus 3,315.
Why 3,315? Shouldn't it be? Well, hold on. What year was this BC?
1290. So
1290. Well, let me see what this number is. Okay, so I've got the year 2277. Nibiru will be back. What do you have?
Something went awry there. Okay, so 1290 is BC. So you add 2025 to 1290, so you get 3315. That's how many years ago it was since the Exodus, since Nibiru. So we're just using this as a point. I love this. I'm not like hanging my hat on it. I give a margin of error because they've manipulated not only the calendars, but they manipulated the timeline. But this piece, I just want to show you, okay, how close we are. All right. So this is the math. So it's 3,315 years ago. So if you take 3315 and subtract it from 3567, you've got 252 years left. However, if and we're going based on the Jewish calendar.
Wait a minute. You said 252 years?
Yeah, 35.
So my math is right, because if so now we subtract. Hold on. Minus. Okay. Watch this. Minus 2025, because that's present day. Look, 252.
Perfect. Okay, so you got that. Very good. So now,
and you're the PhD here. You're the astronomer.
No, I don't have a PhD. But anyway, so this is just an assessment. It's a rough draft. So now the Jewish calendar deleted 200 years. Why? Why did they delete 200 years? Because Nibiru changes time. So let's just for fun, okay, take those 200 years away, and you're left with 52. 252, okay, and you're really 200 years further along than they want you to believe because they deleted 200 years. So let's just put that back. Just for now, I'm not hanging my hat on it and saying this is it, but that leaves us 52 years, okay? So let me expound as to how close we are to this next passing. So because, and I just published a whole book on this because it's so complex that you have to look at all these different layers. So besides the fact that they manipulated the calendars, and they manipulated the timeline itself. So I don't know if you heard Jeremy Corbell recently. He did some video. I didn't watch the whole thing, but he did some documentary with some producers, and they asked him about a date. And he said, if I give you the date, they're only going to change it. So, and this is one of the reasons why I don't make predictions with dates. So everyone always asks, when is Nibiru coming back? Okay. And that was the number one question they used to ask Zecharia Sitchin in every single one of his lectures. And he never once gave a date. And that was mainly because he was told not to by the powers that be, that if he ever gave a date, they were going to end his lectures. So he never gave a date. And, he died of natural causes. But, Robert S. Harrington, who he corroborated with in an interview that you can watch, people can watch it on YouTube. He came from the space telescope perspective. This is what we're seeing. This is what we're tracking. Here it is. It's coming in from Virgo Libra from the southwest, and Sitchin is coming from the past. He's like, well, this is what the Sumerians wrote in stone. Here's this chart, and they corroborated, and they were maybe. The discrepancy was between, like Virgo Libra, which is the next sign. Okay. So then 1982, okay, the IRIS probe went out to the edge of our solar system and brought back a photo of Nibiru. So what the ancients, so the big black, let me just sidestep here, that big blue-black planet that's sitting at the edge of our solar system that you were talking about earlier, that Brown he's writing about, that's not Nibiru, okay? Because Nibiru was shown all the ancients, and this is a pattern that's in from ancient Persia, from Egypt, from Mesopotamia. It's always a big red disc with wings. And I'm sure you've seen it because you've been to Egypt. You see it on the walls there. And what that is this big red planet, which is written about in the Torah, in the Zohar, they called it the Messianic star. They said, when you see this coming, you need to know that this is a harbinger for the end of the age and also for the Messiah. And it was always red. It was talked about as red. So it's not the blue-black one. That's maybe part of the system. There are 6 planets. So Nibiru has wings. And the reason why it has wings is because it's also called a comet planet. So one of the most accurate astronomers who studied this from the 1940s, Carlos Muñoz Ferrada from Chile. And he actually preceded Zecharia Sitchin in publishing all of this. So because Sitchin's work came after. But he called it Hercules, which was based on the Greek name. And he called it a comet planet. It was a planet, but it had comet tails. And that matches to a T exactly what the ancients wrote, literally etched in stone with the wings. And so what Nibiru looks like when they actually got a photo of it from the iris probe is just like that. It's a red, big red ball with wings. And those are comet tails. So the comet tails are full of debris. And that's where the problem lies. So when it passes through our solar system and it goes around the sun, it's going to create an atmospheric storm between the Earth and the sun and the Earth and the moon, which is what that end time prophecy in Joel 2:31 that all, and I write about this stuff because Christians have written, oh, it's, every time we have a blood moon lunar eclipse, they think it's this. And it's like, no, it's not any kind of normal eclipse, blood moon or any other kind. It's not a solar eclipse. This is an eclipse of the tails of this red iron, and it's full of red iron oxide. It's the tails of Nibiru that get in between the Earth and the sun, creates this atmospheric storm, causes 3 days of darkness where you can't see the sun, and then it causes the moon to turn red, like blood, it says. So this is a passing thing. It's not like we're not going to get stuck there, but it's going to create a lot of earth changes to the point where people and the powers that be know this. That's why they've been preparing for this since they got this picture back in 1982 when they brought it and they showed it to President Ronald Reagan. And what Reagan did was, remember the trio, him and Maggie Thatcher and Gorbachev, and they were always meeting together. Well, they discussed this. And after that is where we started, hearing the narrative about climate change and global warming. And then they started putting stuff up in space, thinking that they could retard the warming or change alter it in some way or another. He created initiated the Strategic Defense Initiative, the SDI, which he himself dubbed the Star Wars program, which was essentially putting weapons up in space because they were preparing for this incoming system. And it's not just a planet, it's a planet that comes with beings and they have spaceships. So we've been seeing these ships around the sun. So that's it in a nutshell. That they've been seeing this, and people can go to the 24/7 public loops that are on the NASA sites, the Helio viewer, the SDO, Soho, Coronal, LASCO, the coronagraph, the LASCO coronagraph. There's dozens of these space telescopes focused on the sun, and every so often, when things get a little heated where there's like lots of things happening all at once, they just black it out. But if you're lucky enough to watch it and get it live, people screenshot it or download it, and then that genie's out of the bottle, it's not going back in, and that's how we have so much footage. But when you go back, and everything's date stamped, so when you go back to try to find it, it's not there anymore. So right. That's the nature of the beast.
I have done that, actually. I've done that and saw dropped images and missing images once in a while. And I used to do this a lot more than I do now. But once in a while you go out and you get lucky where you'll see stuff on different cameras and different systems happening at the same time. Things that look like, man, Anunnaki wings. I said it out loud.
Yes. No, I know what you're talking about. I post that all the time and I compare it. I have that in as a comparison that this is what I know.
I used to do screen grabs and post it, and I thought, man, I sound like one of the phone calls I used to take on open lines on Coast to Coast, and I just
it does sound crazy.
Don't want to be that guy. I know.
But hey, we're running out of conspiracy theories, Jimmy. There's a lot of things that we've all.
Soho will give you all you need. Yeah, Soho. Right? Soho will scratch that itch. For sure.
So we're not only seeing ships, we're seeing planets. There's a
portal.
Yeah.
I am convinced.
Yes.
I can't say this as fact, but I've now seen it so much. Man, I can't say it. I'm going to just sound like I'm totally nuts. But I think it's possible that the sun is a portal.
I believe that. I don't think that's nuts. I think that that's based on history, because why this is in the Egyptian mythologies, that like on July 23rd is the Egyptian New Year. Why is that day the Egyptian New Year? Because that's the day where our sun aligns with the star Sirius. And they believed that that was when Isis used to travel back and forth, because that was the portal, like the Stargate. Right. It would open up. Yes. So yes. I don't think that's crazy. I think that's history. I think a lot of people are remembering stuff that has happened in the past that may sound crazy because it's not the norm of our present narrative, which is changing. So we're getting our memories back. We're getting our pieces back. We're remembering, meaning like coming back together as a community. And I think a lot of that has to do with this. Even the Star Wars films, The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, the very first Star Wars, the first one starts off with a planet exploding. Remember that?
Yeah,
and
of course.
That Immanuel Velikovsky wrote about this in the 50s, that basically was what created our asteroid belt. And it's in the Bible as a historical. They called it.
It is. And there's not to get too much into science fiction, because I love it too much and I could do the whole show on it. But in Arthur C. Clarke's 2010, not 2001, but in 2010, you know what happens at the end of the book? Jupiter turns into a second sun.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep. Yes. And we have a 2-star sunrise.
Exactly. And so that was somewhat prophetic.
Well, it's a gas giant. It only takes a match and it's a star. You know right. What I mean? Yeah. Yes. Fusion is off and running.
And so much in the literature about Nibiru, they have confused it with Jupiter many times. I mean, Velikovsky even wrote about this. So because they were looking at it and thinking, and remember in 1994, the Shoemaker-Levy, the string of comets.
Oh, that was the best. Into Jupiter. Yeah.
They slammed right into Jupiter. And so a lot of people believe that Jupiter is there to protect the Earth, because it's a gas. It's like magnetized, like a gravity sucks it into its energy field, because we would have gotten it if it wasn't for that. So
if it wasn't for Jupiter, I'm going to sidestep just for a second. Over the years, I've heard so many different theories about our moon and how perfect of a placement it is, and its size and its distance in relation to the sun and all of that. Yeah, okay. Great. It's fun reading. The eclipse is impossible, but it's okay. You know what? Yeah, fantastic, cool. But the universe is a big place, and it's my guess that's same thing is happening 100 trillion times. Okay, probably a bigger number than that. That's not what's crazy. You know what's crazy? I think we're here because of Jupiter. It's a magnet.
A magnet, yes.
Yeah. It pulls everything in and keeps it from hitting us.
Yes.
That is a very special planet.
Yes.
And Shoemaker-Levy, and that was the other thing. This was my fear. I didn't read this, but I felt it. Could that be the source of ignition? right? You do a string of asteroids in a row exploding. Could that cause something crazy to happen on Jupiter? It didn't, but could it have? What
Yeah,
a crazy,
that's a
yeah,
great question.
yeah, what a crazy day here on Earth, right? Look up and see that.
Wow. Yes,
So
I remember
NASA,
that.
and then we're going to get back to the end of times.
Of course.
NASA, the James Webb Space Telescope, took a look at Apophis, the death asteroid that
Hmm.
is coming by Earth in 2032. So this is what the scientists at James Webb said: no chance of hitting Earth. Okay, big ass chance for hitting the moon. How crazy is that? I mean, what would I rather hit the moon or hit the Earth? I'm kind of thinking Earth would be less catastrophic.
Well, it depends how
Hitting the
big
moon,
it is. It depends how big it is. But, all of these asteroids and comets and the whole string that hit Jupiter, that's from the parade of the debris tails of Nibiru. That's what I'm saying, is that's the biggest problem. It's not Nibiru hitting the Earth or Jupiter or any other planet. It's coming through here with these, think of it like a parade of asteroids, comets, fireballs, and meteorites in a soup of red iron oxide. So the scripture in the book of Revelation that talks about wormwood. So it says that wormwood was a word that they used to describe bitterness. And red iron oxide hitting the earth, okay, or getting into the ocean is going to cause bitterness, which is what that scripture in Revelation is about, that wormwood hits the earth and destroys 1/3 of ocean life because of the bitterness.
right?
So that's the problem. And the Apophis or these other asteroids. And this is interesting. And I've been following this because at first it was like, oh, it was going to hit. Now it's not going to hit. Well, one of the top programs in NASA is DART, which is it's like the movie Armageddon, where Bruce Willis went and
They fire missiles at an asteroid.
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Or they somehow nudge it off of its orbit. So even just a little bit causes it to go off course, and it won't even come near the Earth. So they've been working on that for decades now. And I think, we don't hear about all this stuff, but if you piece it together and you look at the news, oh, this is going to hit the Earth. No, it's not going to hit the Earth because maybe they intervened. Just saying.
Interesting. It kind of reminds me of the movie Don't Look Up.
Yes.
Which was a perfect movie, by the way.
That was great.
Yeah, the ending a little sad, but the ending in a weird way doesn't get done like that in Hollywood often, where what, everybody dies, and that doesn't happen in Hollywood too often. There's always a happy ending. But
there's worse things than death, Jimmy.
Oh yeah, there are. Yeah.
So everybody dies isn't really it's sad for on this side of life, but there's life after death. And then there's people who, end up getting the kingdom after this life. So the fact that this is in the prophecies, we have to contend with that as souls, that.
Well, how did they know? I mean, and to talk about something worse than death, the shrimp salad I had for lunch today. You just knew from bite one. But the back to the math before we hit the break.
Sure.
When is Nibiru arriving?
Well, that's what I was saying. So that's the $1 million question. And it's not a date. It's a period of 7 years.
Okay,
so,
when?
Well, this is where things get really complex, because it's the math is really messed up.
Is it this year, or is it in 30 years? Is it my problem or my daughter's problem?
Depends. Well, you know, you and I are in the same generation, so it just depends on how long we live. With our problem, our children or grandchildren. It's this century. I'm going to say that. I'm not going to give a year. However, I did offer some data that I in my book about Nibiru, and that was the period of time between 2040 and 2046, which is a 7-year period, right? Because you start with the 0, 2040 to 2046. And what I found interesting about that was
that's in 15 years. Holy crap! It could be our problem.
Yeah. Well, so here in a nutshell, let me just give you the calendar that I now work from, and that's the prophetic calendar, because the prophetic calendar has been 100% accurate thus far. So you can go through the prophetic calendar and you can check off everything that's already happened and see what's left to come. And that's using a major portal. And there's the whole planet has portals. You know, NASA came out in 2011, and I have the you know, the graphic from the magazines when they published this in 2011, that NASA found out that there's portals opening and closing all over the planet all day long. And that just went right under the radar. But
I remember that. Yeah.
But yeah, it was published. So
let me jump in.
Sure.
Public service announcement. It's 62 to 62 with 2 minutes and 5 seconds left. Florida and Houston.
Wow.
The championship game. 62 to 62. Watching Florida claw their way back. And Houston just went up 62 to 63. Got a nail biter going down in San Antonio, everybody. Okay, so anyway, so somewhere 2040 to 2046, that 7-year window, because of the prophetic calendar.
Yes. Now, I could be off, and I don't hang my hat on dates anymore because of what I found out, that the calendars have been manipulated and time itself has been manipulated. That's what I was trying to tell you, that they are able to go in and shift things, whether it's through CERN or through time travel technologies. There's so much that they've been able to do. Okay. And, you know, you can have a whole conversation about, you know, the Mandela effect and all this kind of stuff, but they can only shift things so much. And there's nothing they can do, and you know who I mean when I say they, that can stop what's coming, because it's like a train that's already left the station. It's on its way. It's just a matter of how many stops it's going to take until it passes. So we already know that it's coming in. It's close. We see the signs. So the signs is what Jesus talked about in Matthew 24. Every single one of those signs are here now. Okay. He called them birth pangs, like contractions. And that just like when you give birth, they come closer and closer and closer until, you know, the new life is there. So there's going to be a lot of rough times, and already is. We're seeing this year, last year. It's unprecedented. The flooding in places that normally doesn't get flooding, fires in places that normally do not get fires, you know, and this is all due to pole shift, and the planet has not passed through yet. This is the parade. I call it a parade from the comet tails, the debris tails that precedes it. That comes first, and that's what causes all these shifts that we're seeing.
Did you see the press release over the weekend? I think it happened on Friday. Göbekli Tepe, the new research out of Göbekli Tepe, that Göbekli Tepe is a calendar. Now, I don't have the specifics up in front of me, but what they did mention is what you're talking about right now. That
Yes.
it was recording debris from comet tails.
Yes. And what happened at Göbekli Tepe years ago, what they did was they went underground. That's how they were able to survive when things became uninhabitable on the surface temporarily. Okay. So we know that the Department of They have been building underground cities all over the world. It's no secret. They do documentaries on it, in Europe, that they can fit 950,000 people in a city underground. If anything went down, everybody would go under. Or they've gone to Mars or the moon, and it has to be underground. Okay, so this has been going on for decades now. And so what the Bible tells us in terms of what's supposed to happen is that there's going to be a great war over Israel. So out of all the portals, I was talking about portals, and the whole planet has portals. One of the biggest portals is Jerusalem. And that is like the one that has been fought over by just about every single empire on Earth since its inception. And that's where everything, ends up converging. The war ends up there. It ends there. And even the age to come, the new age to come, the city, the New Jerusalem, which is the city that comes out of heaven, call it a mothership. It's described as some phantasmagorical city mothership that has 12 gates, 12 doors that open up, and that it says it lands on a scorched earth, and that the Messiah, King of the universe, sits on a throne in the middle of it and rules the whole planet with an iron rod. And then there's no more darkness. The curses are broken. There's no more suffering. There's no more war. And it's like, call it the fifth dimension, call it the age of Aquarius, but all of that is going to happen all around the same time.
Florida just went up by 164 to 63, 46 seconds left. Man. Okay. So the fascinating part about this, I just don't believe in coincidences, but if this is all happening now, tied with climate change and the other things that we are seeing, the magnetic pole shift, and now the Nibiru connection at 2040, this all seems to be happening at the same time. Not coincidence. Is this all tied in with the end of times?
Absolutely, yes. So this is the prophetic calendar points to Israel. So what happens over and to Israel is how we know where we're at, because there's a 7-year period that this prince to come is going to be given authority over the earth. And whether American disclosure happens or not by that time, because I think, we're kind of in this drip disclosure. We get pieces here and pieces there, and it's up to us to kind of, fit it together. When this prince to come emerges, and we don't know who he is yet, I can tell you where he's going to come from based on what the Bible tells us. And I can tell
he's
you
coming from Nibiru. He's coming from Nibiru on an Anunnaki winged ship.
Well, he's incarnated on Earth, and he comes out of one of the Muslim nations. Okay, so we know that he's Muslim because it says so in the Bible. And we also know that he holds no affection for women because it says so. Okay, and that he creates a peace treaty that's a 7-year peace treaty with Israel, and literally is the one to end the war. So the war has already kind of begun, right? We can agree on that. However long it goes on, however, all the other nations, is supposed to be 10. It says a 10 caliphate, a 10-headed dragon, a 10 nation, the revived Roman Empire. So when you look at all the nations that the old Roman Empire used to rule over, those nations now are in Africa and in the Middle East, and even they're Islamic. They're Muslim now.
So Muslim means Anunnaki. Okay, let's.
I don't.
I know.
I
I'm
don't
just. It's a bad joke. It's a bad joke.
Okay, I wouldn't
Let's
say
think,
that. But
Ella.
okay.
Ella.
Go ahead.
Let's get our break in,
Cool.
and then we'll wrap this up when we come back. This
Sure.
part, because I've got other issues that I need your help with. This
course.
is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Ella LeBain is with us. Tonight, it's UFOs and the end of times. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Beckley Teppy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Today we're headed to Bolivia, Tiwanaku, Peru, and of course, Bumapunku. Brian, exciting. Thank you so much for everything, my friend.
Always an honor. Right behind us is the sacred river of the Inca that goes past Machu Picchu. So we're going to be driving up to its source at 15,000 feet above sea level and then down to Lake Titicaca.
So today we hit 15,000 feet.
Yes.
Crazy. And you can do it with us. All you have to do is go to hiddenincatours.com. Simple. We've got 2 tours coming up next year, one in June for the summer solstice, right? And then another one right here in November. So hiddenincatours.com. Come and hang out with Brian and I and his amazing team.
Right on.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Ella LeBain, is with us on the night of the college championship game. Right now, Florida is up 65-63, 19 seconds left. It's the final. Florida wins 65-63, Florida, the new champions of college basketball. Wow, that was a nail biter. And that's it. Florida wins. Wow. Okay, so back to the end of times. Our guest tonight, UFOs in the end of times. What a great conversation tonight with Ella LeBain. And Ella, I want to address, if we may, the elephant in the room here. And I want your take on this. Wow, that was a fast transition. What's going on? That was kind of weird. I've got lots of cameras in here, and though it just clipped, it went blop really fast. Okay, so anyway, the elephant in the room. When we talk about Elohim, the Watchers, Jesus, even we can throw Jesus into the mix. Even God, whatever version you want to talk, are technically aliens. Are they aliens? Are they ET?
Well, I started off my book series defining and identifying those very words, just so that we can all be on the same page with language. Because so many people, like, for instance, will say Jesus was an alien. Actually, he was an extraterrestrial, more of an ultra-terrestrial, because he was half human and also half God. So anything that is non-human would be qualified as an alien. And one of the things that our government has just recently shifted in terms of terminology, where they stopped calling it, aliens, they call it NHI, non-human intelligence, which is more specific. Okay, so that tells you that's not a human. And in my book, anything that is not a human is an alien. And, I've been, trying to prove to the Christian community that not all aliens are demons, because that's what they think. They think that, because of, that there are some that are part of, have become demonic because of the fallen angel story and the Watchers, as you mentioned. But the word Elohim literally translates to gods with an S. It's plural for gods. So it encompasses all the gods, okay? Good, bad, and the ugly, all right?
But
so,
the reference to heavens and all of this information coming down, it seems like it came from the stars. And that falls into the category, which is direct. It's not of this earth. So that's the way it reads to me and it feels to me. But yet Christians or no, okay. I want to say this correctly. I don't want to offend half of the planet here. But it's okay to talk like that and interpret the Bible with angels and demons and God and Jesus and the Messiah and all, the Son of God. But you bring up UFOs and aliens, and that's something that's unbelievable, right? It's kind of weird when we're talking about the same thing.
Yes. Well, a lot of that has to do with not only terminology, mistranslations, complete and deliberate cover-ups by the Church of Rome. So we started talking at the end of the last segment about disclosure and how we can't put all our eggs in one basket and think that the U.S. government is going to give us the whole enchilada. That the Bible tells us that there will be catastrophic disclosure. So whether we're ready for that or not, it's going to happen. Just like Nibiru is coming through, whether we're ready for it or not. I don't think there's any technology that we have, or that even the ETs that we're working with have, that can stop that from happening. This is set in motion. This is celestial dynamics. I don't purport to know the date and the time, because it's not a date and a time. It's a period of time. So we know that when it begins and when it ends, according to what the prophecy says, there's this 7-year period on Earth that is called in the Old Testament, the book of Daniel, the time of Jacob's troubles. And Jacob, as you know, became Israel. So we know that that's a 7 year. And then we also piece it together with this 7-year treaty that happens after this war that Ezekiel chapter 38 discusses and predicts and prophesies, which is the war of Gog and Magog, which has to do with this Islamic caliphate, which is very specific in the Bible because they name names. Okay, so we know who they're talking about, geographically speaking, as well as based on belief systems and where they stand. So I'm getting ready to put this new book out in May. It's called The Cosmic Slingshot. And this is a piece. It's not, the be all and end all, but it's a piece of this that I am saying that Christian eschatologists, and what is a Christian eschatologist? First of all, eschatology didn't really start happening until 1948, because that's when Christians recognized that the end time prophecies were beginning to be fulfilled with the formation, the rebirth of the state of Israel. That was huge. And just about every Christian pastor, eschatologist in the world right now will agree that's when it began. Okay, so however long that goes on for until this end time war emerges, which we're seeing all the pieces come together for it right now, this war of Gog and Magog, is this revived Roman Empire with these 10 nations that are all Islamic. So as you know, in Islam, there's two sides, right? There's the Sunnis and the Shias. So there's secular Muslims. They're just Muslim based on culture, just like a lot of Jews and Catholics are Jewish or Catholic based on culture. They're not necessarily religious. Then there's that religious side that thinks that's the jihadists. They think that they have to kill and decimate and wipe Israel off the face of the earth so that they can have their virgins in heaven or whatever. Okay, that's their belief system. That was in the Bible, even before Islam became a religion, which didn't really happen until 750 AD, 725, which the Church of Rome helped foster. Okay, so I published all of this in history because they were part of that, and they come full circle. So my new book, The Cosmic Slingshot, proves reincarnation in the Bible. And reincarnation is a piece of this prophecy, of the whole of the prophecy, that Christians can't really understand fully all the nuances, the pieces of this end time prophecy without understanding reincarnation. That reincarnation has been a part of the Bible since the beginning, okay, that the aliens are using it, that the Nephilim, the hybrids, the star seeds are all using reincarnation on Earth to come through here. There's multiple cross cultures, different star systems, hybrids of hybrids, and all that kind of stuff happening. And there's nothing new under the sun, right? So everything that's happening now has happened already. But here's the thing, is that they jolted us by trying to erase history and delete memories so that we wouldn't remember and have a reference to oh, wait, that happened already, and this is what went down, and so we're not going to do that again. Learn a lesson type of a thing. And that goes back to Atlantis. All right. So I prove in my book series that the Bible starts off with the sinking of Atlantis, because it says in Genesis 1:2, and the Spirit hovered over the waters of the earth. And then the Elohim came and put the life back on the earth. They recreated everything. And Christians think that, the earth is only 6,000 years old. The Jewish calendar, this is interesting. This is a very important piece here, because the Jewish calendar ends when when they hit the year 6,000. So right now we're at 5785, but they deleted 200 years. So if you add those 200 years back, we're at 5985. Okay, so if you're confused, that's okay. I have
that would put us okay. So that puts us 15 years out, lining up with your 2040 prophetic calendar. That's pretty interesting.
Yes, and so like I said, I don't hang my hat on any of this stuff. I'm just interested in how many times they manipulated the calendars and the timeline. And one thing I can say for sure, and I published this in my 5th book, is that every time Nibiru comes through, it changes time. And this can be explained, physically. So, like for instance, when we in 2004, we had a 9.0 earthquake in Chile. Remember that? And then there was that year, and then on Boxing Day that year, there was that tsunami, that terrible, remember in Thailand, and that was a year of like the earth jolted. So what happened that year? They talked about this right after it happened, that the 9.0 jolted the earth so strong that it caused the earth to get to push off of its axis for like 20 seconds. So, and then everybody was going on about, oh, how time is speeding up. Doesn't it feel like everything's happening like really fast? So whether that's perception or that's really what's happening, or it's a combination of both, I'll let you decide. But we know based on data that, and we just had an 8.8 and a 7.7, and that was the day after they announced that the core of the earth had flipped. So there's different types of earthquakes. There's the surface ones, and then there's the deep ones. These were deep. That one, that 7.7 that happened in Myanmar, that ended up in Bangkok, that was felt all the way to China, that was like 800 miles. Okay, that's like unheard of. That's like huge, right? So this is the kind of trend we're in. All right, these are not like isolated now. They're starting to happen like birth pangs, and they're happening more frequently, and they're happening in with more magnitude. And these are all what the signs were. So you have two things happening. You have these earth changes because it's responding to the perturbations of the system coming in. And Nibiru may not be here yet, but its sisters are. We are seeing not just spaceships around the sun, we're seeing planets around the sun. We're seeing moons. There's a planet that eclipses our sun every 28 days. I have a video of it. It's pinned to my Facebook page if anybody wants to see it. On April 8th, 1 year ago from tomorrow, when we had that big total eclipse, remember last year was a total eclipse of the sun? Well, everyone had their cameras up at the sun. So this came from the Space Telescope, where we see the eclipse of the sun. We see the moon go over the sun. The moon doesn't go backwards. It doesn't do an about face, reverse, and go in a different direction. The moon is going in one direction. It goes over the sun. And then just like maybe a minute later, not even, you see this other object coming from a complete opposite direction, partially eclipse the sun. Okay, so you see the total moon, and then you see a partial eclipse of another big, round, spherical.
What is it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's one of the sisters. I call it sisters, brothers, sisters of Nibiru. So there are other planets that belong to Nemesis that I call interlopers.
Can we see this with telescopes from our backyard?
Some people have captured these objects in their camera systems here on Earth, but they're best seen through these space telescopes because they're watching them. And the people who are operating the space telescopes, they know all about them. Okay, this isn't something new to them. They're just keeping it under wraps. They don't want people on Earth to panic. It's the same concept behind UFO, the truth embargo, UFO disclosure, and the cover-up, is that they're when Chaim Eshed, you know who he was,
Of course,
the Israeli space chief. Now he he became a whistleblower in 2020 when he went to the Yediot Achronot, which is like the equivalent of the New York Times here in Israel. And he told one of the journalists that the United States and Israel were in working agreements with the Galactic Federation on Earth. Now, I found those words very interesting because I know you've heard about this. We hear all about Galactic Federation of Light, Galactic Federation of Worlds, all these different terms. But he was very specific, and he said the Galactic Federation on Earth. And then he went on to say that that President Trump knew about it and that they were sharing astronauts on a joint base on Mars. Okay, so you can't make this stuff up. And he didn't just go and give them this story that they put in the newspaper for a day. He ended up publishing a book with the journalist, and his book was called Beyond the Universe and the Horizon Beyond, but it's all in Hebrew. Okay, so you couldn't get it in like a PDF where you could put it through a translator. So I was able to translate about 13 pages on just the crashes, because he talked about UFO crashes and alien beings that he published in 2020. This came out in December of 2020, and that was all over the world. There was crashes in Israel. And here's what I've concluded. Okay, first of all, a lot of these crashes seem to happen around the same areas. Okay, so like in Israel, there's this place called Elijah's Cave, which is on Shikmona Beach, and that the reason why they called it Elijah's Cave is because the Old Testament prophet Elijah used to live there, and he was a frequent flyer. He went up and down, he ascended, and then God sent him back, and then he ascended, and he never died. So there's a handful of the ascended masters in the Bible that never died. There's no record of their death. Melchizedek, Enoch, Elijah, then of course Jesus, but he had to die on earth, but then he ascended after that. Okay, so those are the big four. But Elijah's Cave, they had a crash. It was like in 90 something, in the 90s. And it was like, why that spot? Okay, why do these crashes happen in these certain areas that seemed like New Mexico? There's been multiple crashes, and not just Roswell, there's Socorro. And so suffice it to say, it has to do with portals. All right. And why are they fighting over Jerusalem? Because Jerusalem is an ancient portal. The very last lecture that Zecharia Sitchin gave, the one that he did before he died, was all about Jerusalem. Why Jerusalem? It was titled. And one of the things that he uncovered in that last lecture was this underground that was in Jerusalem. So, here's the thing, is that if there's ancient space portals that are still alive, okay, then this could explain why there's crashes at these sites over and over again. So Chaim Eshed wrote about these, there's a list of, there's a dozen of them. And then he wrote about Magenta, Italy. Magenta, Italy in 1932, there was a crash, and that's exactly what David Grush told us in July of 23. So he gave it to us based on from the American story, because that was after the war when America got the spoils of the war. But Chaim Eshed told the story from what happened in 32 in Italy, and how the Germans came and cleaned it up and took everything back to Germany. So of course, because we won the war, we got what the Germans had. So that's why that was the only difference, was that, we had it versus they had it. They had it first, then we got it second. But it connects. That's all I'm saying. So, and then the other stuff was that he talked about another crash in Russia that I think it was in Siberia, and that they found humans, dead humans in the crash, and that they had oxygen apparatus attached to them. Okay. So who knows if that was ET or if that was Russian cosmonauts trying to do, secret space program. I can't answer that, but that's what he reported.
Now, if Nibiru, staying on the same subject, if all of this plays out and the timing is what it is and the end of times, and UFOs that we're talking about this evening, the Anunnaki that are on Nibiru, they have been here before. I think that they would technically be more advanced than us. If we go with what Sitchin said, they modified us and created us 200,000 years ago. Okay, all right. Very interesting. And I think that is beyond coincidence, because we did lose 2 chromosome pairs at about that time, and Homo sapiens sapien just appeared. This is scientific fact. Any anthropologist will tell you that. And I find that very strange how science fiction is lining up with actual science.
Oh,
very strange. Yeah,
in my language, truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But there's a but here. We are being visited by different advanced species from around the universe. It's not one specific. But the Anunnaki and Nibiru, if they're getting closer to us, wouldn't they send ships in advance to 2040 and make some kind of announcement? Because they're not going to hit Earth, they're going to do a drive-by. So are they going to meet with the United Nations?
Well, those are all great questions. I don't have answers to any of them, but I can tell you that those ships are already here, because we're seeing them around the sun, and they're exactly the same shape as what was etched in stone thousands of years ago. So call it a match, like the Ahura Mazda. We've seen that. We've seen ships that are shaped like the USS Enterprise, even the Millennium Falcon. So, I have this belief that the people who write these scripts for these movies are handed this information, given these ideas, because it's part of an MJ-12 think tank from the 1950s to help prepare the public for what they know is inevitable that's going to happen. And that's called soft disclosure. Okay, so the truth is stranger than fiction. It's in the movies, it's in the TV, it's in the sci-fi scripts, because they knew that back in the 50s, they had to control the information. They knew that people weren't ready for it yet. And I can't even say, and that's why I brought up Chaim Eshed, because that was the other piece that he was told, was that the Galactic Federation on Earth told him, or he communicated this, that we're not ready for the alien reveal to know who they are yet. Okay. And we have to say why aren't we ready? Some of us are, some of us aren't. But if you look at the landscape, what's happening now, socially, culturally, politically, all around the world, not just here, there's so. And Nibiru, let me insert this, that the closer Nibiru gets, the more mental illness surfaces. And how do we know that, besides the obvious? Because of what the Colburn Bible told us about what happened in the past. So we have precedent. This is what went on in ancient times. They recorded it, they wrote it down so that we could have it now. So we know that there's this mental cognitive dissonance, or this denial, okay? And also this false expectation of what we want to have happen that may not be what actually ends up happening. So they knew that, so they decided to give some of these concepts to the script writers so that people can be prepared, at least with conceptually speaking, where they see the ships or they see this happen, or they see and they go, oh, that's just like in Star Wars. Oh, that's just like in Star Trek. And we have something to relate to.
Mhm.
Because what Chaim Eshed was told is that we're not ready. So there's an assumption, okay, within the community, and has been for years, and this is one of the reasons I wrote my first book, was that these visitors or these ETs or whatever are coming from outside the universe or outside the solar system or from another galaxy. Not that that isn't part of the mix, okay, but what we're dealing with on Earth, and that's why he specifically used the words Galactic Federation on Earth, is that they are from within. They have been living here, coexisting with us for millennia. They went underground, probably after the first flood, and then again on the second flood, and then maybe on the last passing. But there's breakaway civilizations living there. There's multiple civilizations living under our feet. Okay. And what most people are dealing with, this is the norm. Okay. I'm not saying it's like the be all and end all. The abductions are the reptilians. They live inside. They have been living inside the earth from the beginning. They're in all of the religious literature. They're in the Bible. They're in, written in stone. They're not new. Okay. And the Greys also written in stone, all the natives can identify. I mean, there was, the natives in South America, when they were shown pictures of the Greys, they're like, oh yeah, we know who they are. They've been here before. So what we have are different groupings of different types of aliens and ETs, but they're intraterrestrial because they're living inside the planet. And they're not just living inside Earth, they're living in the moon, they're living underground on Mars. And we know this from multiple whistleblowers who have, been involved in listening. So I listen to the whistleblowers. I piece the stories together. If one says this and the other says that, and they both are a match, like what I just shared with you with what David Rush said and what Chaim, that's a match. That's corroboration, because I come from the legal field and we're always looking to corroborate things, to make evidence, to make truth. And that to me is a slam dunk. And I'm not saying that they're not coming from outside. And of course, Nibiru is coming from outside. And yes, Sitchin talked about Anunnaki, which basically meant, extraterrestrials, he who comes from heaven to earth. I mean, let's just call them an ET. But I was told, here's another piece, that the return of Yeshua was going to coincide with the return of Nibiru. Not that he was coming like riding on Nibiru and he was coming with Nibiru, he was coming from Nibiru, but that his return coincides with the passing of Nibiru. And to me, that made perfect sense because of the prophecy. So I go,
is it the same? Okay, well, let me jump in here. Oh, by the way, where Eshed got it wrong, something lost in translation. If they are getting here from out there, then they are way more advanced than us, which makes us the trailer park of the universe. So of course we're not ready. That's just the way that it is. But is it the same? And I'm not being cavalier. I'm being straight up. We are certainly, well, maybe not. We're double wide trailers, not single wide, because we're growing up, and we got the fancy stuff now. But is it the same everywhere? Are all of the star systems out there with intelligent life dealing with Yeshua and Jesus and God and the creation of the universe? Are they reading from the same Bible?
That is a great question. And I just published my last book all about that, Heaven's Witness, book 6, which is connecting the dots to the Mazarot. And the Mazarot are the constellations and the star pictures and the story of the stars that basically tells the whole story of the battle between humans and reptilians, the dragon, it's in the stars, and the Messiah, and overcoming and the kingdom of heaven. It's all written in the stars before the Bible was even written on earth. Okay.
So it's the same. It must be the same everywhere.
Well, I can't say that it's the same, and here's why. That's kind of a two-part answer. The Messiah, the King of the universe, is the same everywhere. So there's multiple universes, but this.
So what about okay? I got it. With the limited time that we have left.
Sure.
Is Jesus on every 1,000 trillion planets?
Well, here's the thing. So,
or is he just exclusive to us trailer park Earthlings?
No, because he's in the stars. He's in the star pictures. So that means that it's available to all the ETs in the universe. Okay. And the pictures, the stars were put up there and named and ordered by the creator. Okay. So this is in the book of Job. I mean, he named the stars. We named the animals, we named the stuff on this planet. He named the stars for a reason, because he needed to keep the story straight. So the story is the same, but whether it's the same for other planets as it is for Earth, I don't think so.
It must be. It must be. Ella, I'm going to debate you on it. It would have to be.
No, because I think that Earth has been fought over. Okay,
what about okay?
We're in a battle.
Page one in the Bible, Genesis.
Yes.
Right? Bam.
Yes.
Right? So that is everything. I don't know what a Christian apologist is. I'm confused. Apparently been around for a couple of thousand years, causing trouble. But
you
one
want
of
the
the things
definition of that?
No. Let's not even go there.
Okay.
I don't need them on my ass.
No.
But is this that, well, God is the last word. However you want it, but the way it is written, that is it. We're not here to discuss anything, right?
Well, that's fundamentalism. Okay.
Yeah. I think one and the same. But that being said, if you take page 1, those first 3 paragraphs of the Bible, literally, then that is the universe, and it's got to be the same everywhere. I had a guest, and I'm not religious, but man, the Bible's the best science fiction ever, and I love reading it. It's amazing science fiction. But I had a guest on the show, and he said this to me. I'm not going to say his name. I can't do it. He said this. Ship landed in his backyard. He jumps on it, and he takes off. They take him to a planet, okay, outside of our star system. And the ship lands. Doors open. This is what came out of his mouth, Ella. He said, so he's walking around the city and he comes up to this arena, right? Arena, domed stadium. And he walks inside. He sees a bunch of people, walks inside, and it's a convention with booths and things, big, giant convention. And he's walking around looking at all the aliens and all the stuff. And he comes up to this booth and he looks, and there's Jesus sitting in this booth, autographing Bibles for sale. And he stops. Now, this is what happened, Jimmy. So he goes up and he goes, hey, Jesus, what are you doing? He goes, what do you think I'm doing? I'm autographing Bibles for sale. So you're here? And he goes, yeah, man, I'm everywhere. That's what he said. Jimmy, I couldn't believe it, man. Jesus was on this planet. And so he comes back to Earth, not Jesus, my friend. He comes back to Earth a few months later. This is in Southern California, by the way, where we're just a big bowl of granola here, It's not a fruit or a nut, it's a flake, you know what I mean? And so he's telling this story, and he says he's at home watching TV. There's a light in his backyard, catches his attention. He looks, he goes up to the window, and there's a teepee, Indian teepee in his backyard that's lit up at night. It's like, what's a teepee doing in my backyard? So he walks out. He goes up, he looks in the teepee, and it's Jesus sitting in there meditating. And he goes, Jesus, you're back. And he goes, yeah, man, it's great seeing you on the planet. I just wanted to come back and say hi and check in with you. You want to come in and sit down and have a chat? Yeah, man. So he sits down and has a talk with Jesus. Jesus says, I got to go. He walks out. Jesus splits. Again, back to, if you take the Bible literally on page 1, then Jesus and God and everything, I think all the that they go through the same processes because it's universal. That's my take. If you take it literally.
To some degree, I agree with you, because that's what I published, that salvation is for everyone. Okay. So that is a given, but our planet has a unique history that other planets don't have. And that doesn't mean other planets don't have similar things, and this is based on Kabbalah and Death Stars, and we've been fought over. There's a battle going on here. It's a hierarchy. We've changed. You know, they've been fighting over who gets to own this piece of real estate, basically. Okay. And the Earth has 11 dimensions. So there's a lot happening under our feet. And this explains a lot of anomalies and paranormal type experiences that people have. But the Bible was given to us for Earth. Right. I just connected the dots to the overall story of the battle between good and evil, and humans and reptilians and serpents and other types of aliens that are reflected in the Mazarot, in the star pictures. So yes, I agree with you that it is a similar thing, but it's not exactly the same because of what happened here to our history. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't another Earth somewhere. I believe that there is another, like a parallel Earth, and you and I are sitting there on another Earth, and maybe we're having a different type of discussion, you know, like it's
and we're hot and in our 20s.
Okay.
Right.
I'll take it.
Right. I'll take it.
Okay. Yep.
Because
we're in our 60s now.
Yeah,
that's why you're making that joke. Okay, just for your audience, so you know where that's coming.
I had a conversation with my daughter earlier today about this, and I told her she's 30 now. She just turned 30, and having this conversation about how quick life goes by.
Yeah.
You know, just today I had that conversation with her, and I just wish I could freeze things for a minute. Just stop. Just pump the brakes on this thing and stop it. But
you have memories.
Here's
last
another
forever. Your memories last forever.
No, we just got to figure out. We got to figure out how to travel at the speed of light so we can freeze time. But by the way, there was a press release today. The paper is in pre-published mode for peer review that string theory has been proven. Those 11 dimensions you're talking about, if everything checks out, that was published today, string theory's been proven. Brian Greene is so happy right now. That's
awesome. Yeah, that's another. See, that's another conspiracy that's just been vindicated.
It's so cool.
So you know what I did in my book? I connected the dots to what the Book of Enoch talks about, the 10 heavens. So if you take the word heaven and dimension, they're kind of part of the same linguistics. So heaven is another dimension.
100%. 100%.
So Enoch published. That's in his books. So this is stuff the ancients, we are getting our memories back. This is part of that. That's a vindication, what you just shared. So of course there's, and this surface, this third 3D world that we are in, that's number 11. The rest of them are, we can't always see. Maybe we can sense, maybe we can feel, but we're dealing with interdimensionals, I mean, even, and there's a battle going on. So I can't say that the same battle is happening on every planet, but I can say what's happening here and who's going to end up with the earth, because we were given promises, okay, that the prize, the reward is heaven. None of the people die and they go up to the stars that people think they go somewhere else. Heaven is coming to earth. The meek inherit the earth. The gentle inherit the earth. All the Beatitudes, everything that Christ spoke about was the reward. Who gets to inherit the earth? Because when he comes back, he rules. And it says for 1,000 years. So the beginning of the Bible, people lived to be like 950. Methuselah lived to be 969. What happened? We were genetically downgraded. There was several manipulations along the way. After the first flood, and then again after the second.
Didn't Noah and his kids all rocked it to about 750, right?
Well, I think after Noah was saved out of the first group of humans. So he he
lived to like all of his kids lived to like 700 years.
Because they were original DNA. But the genetic manipulation happened after that. Then the telomeres don't go up. They don't go past 120. And most people are lucky if they can live to be in their 80s or 90s. So things got dumbed down. So when they say, the ETs came to help us evolve, my take, what I have published, my glean from this whole historical thing that Sitchin wrote about, was that they manipulated us, okay? Because we had it all during Atlantis. The humans that lived on this earth during the times of Atlantis had everything. Okay.
You know why? You know why though?
On all 5 cylinders. Yeah. Go ahead.
You know why? They drank telomere water. Which I'm gonna bottle that. I'm gonna start selling that on my website. Telomere water.
You're so
This
funny.
is how ET is gonna do it. All right? Nibiru, Anunnaki, 2040. You know how it's gonna play out? They can't come and show up like they look. That'll freak us out.
Right.
Can't do it. You know who's going to step off that ship over Los Angeles when it lands in Chinatown? You want me to tell you?
Go ahead. I'm listening.
Jesus. That's who's going to step down those steps. The flowing robes, the grace. Oh, he's going to come down because that won't freak anybody out. Well, it could be Elvis. Elvis would be a good one too. If Elvis came down.
What you just said actually fits into one of the end time prophecies. Was that before? Yes. Is that before Yeshua, the real Jesus, the real Yeshua returns? There's going to be fake and false and counterfeit Jesuses. Fake Christs that are going to pretend to be Messiah. They're going to pretend to be Jesus. They're going to call themselves all kinds of things, just like you said. And they're going to, and it says the Antichrist, who is the counterfeit Messiah, is going to have the power, it says this, to pull fire down from heaven. Those are the words that's in the scripture. So that's biblical vernacular for alien technology. Okay? Fire down from heaven, direct energy weapons, right? So we have to put on our muscles or exercise our muscles of discernment. And that can only happen through the inner technology of our soul, that we can use our BS barometers to know will the real Messiah please stand up? Who's the real Jesus and who's the counterfeit? Because if we get on the ship with the counterfeit, who's to say if we're really going to be saved or eaten? Just saying. Okay, that is.
Did you say eaten?
I did.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
because that's a piece of it. The scripture talks about the earth is used as a farm. Okay, even Jesus talked about this in the Gnostic Gospels, that's one of the reasons why he came to save us, was to save us behind enemy lines, because everyone is in bondage to this in this prison planet, which is why he never argued with Satan when he said he had the power to give him all the kingdoms of the earth, because he knew that he was the God of this world. And that's what he's coming to reclaim. Okay, so when he lands after the war, it happens at the end. So we have to go through. That's why I said I could tell you where we're at and what needs to happen next. When you see that temple get rebuilt in Jerusalem, the third Jewish temple, you can start counting down. Okay, 7 years, because the Antichrist is going to help the Jews rebuild that temple. And he's going to set himself up in that temple, and they're going to go back to animal sacrifices, which they've already started in 2013 outside the Temple Mount. They're going to do animal sacrifices again, and then the Antichrist is going to tell them to stop. He's going to end it, all right, probably from a lot of pressure from PETA and all these other animal rights groups, and he stops it, and then he tells them to worship him, and that's when all hell breaks loose. The scripture says that after 3.5 years into the 7-year agreement, it's like hell on earth, and it's like Hitler 2.0. Okay.
Well,
he
if we have,
everybody. So
we've got 2 minutes. We've got 2 minutes left. Let me get this in. And by the way, Ella, perfect show. Perfect. I look forward to our next conversation. If observatories are named Wormwood and Lucifer, right? Observatories are named. It seems to me that the governments, plural, around the world understand this biblical connection to the stars and ET. Am I wrong, or am I taking it too far?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're at the bottom of the barrel here. We're just scraping with getting what they throw us carrots here every now and then. So, that's why we have to piece things together. They've known about this for decades. They've been planning this. And to be fair, okay, there are good humans involved in this who have consciences, who feel the need to do something important to help the rest of us. Those are the whistleblowers. If there weren't whistleblowers, we'd all be like mushrooms, kept in the dark and fed what.
Ella, perfect show. And everybody, I want to remind you that Ella's links are below over on our website and throughout social media. Who's Who in the Cosmic Zoo is one of her many websites, but you can definitely chase down everything that she is working on right there. Ella, thank you so much. Perfect show. And I'll just let you know that my bunker in the backyard, it fits 4. Okay. I'll talk to you. Ella,
thank you
so much. I look forward to our next conversation. Tonight was just absolutely perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Perfect night. Ella LeBain, everybody. Her websites are below on our social media and, of course, in the description box. So it's right there on our website, too, as well. And go and chase her down. A great series of books, and I look forward to the next one. And, of course, our next conversation. So that'll do it for this episode of Fade to Black. Everybody, what am I doing tomorrow night? Does anybody know? Oh, Richard Vaught is back with us tomorrow night. You ready? Osiris and DMT. So until tomorrow night, all I've got is Go Backley Tappy. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Go back, Lee Tappy.